Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special May Day related episode of The New Left on the People's Voice Network. My name is Logan Grendel, and I will be hosting tonight with this excellent panel of people. And I wanted to start by reading something written by Eugene V. Debs. If you don't know who it is, you should. One of the greatest labor organizers and leaders, ran for president a few times, socialist, and also essentially an intersectional international proletarian hero before there were words for such. And in his May Day address to black workers specifically, this was written in 1923, he says, "Due to the ignorance, prejudice, and unreasoning hatred of the white race in relation to the Negro, the latter has fared cruelly indeed, and he has had but little encouragement from the superior race to improve his economic, intellectual, and moral condition. But on the contrary, almost everything has been done to discourage every tendency on the part of the Negro towards self-improvement and to keep him in abject servitude beneath the iron heel of his exploiting master. On May Day, the workers of the world celebrate the beginning of their international solidarity and register the high resolve to clasp hands all around the globe and to move forward in one solid phalanx toward the sunrise and the better day. On that day, we drink deeply at the fountain of proletarian inspiration. We know no nationality to the exclusion of any other, nor any creed or any color. But we do know that we are all workers, that we are conscious of our interests and our power as a class, and we propose to develop and make use of that power in breaking our fetters and in rising from servitude to the mastery of the world." Now, some people might say that he was trying to do class reductionism, but that's not the case, right? Class reductionism, as we do it now, is when we refuse to talk about issues of identity because we think that's going to sully the overall issue, which is class, right? But that's not how it works. And to say those things in 1923, to essentially name and shame and call out white supremacy in service of welcoming black people into the greater worker struggle, well, that was an example of what we need to be doing now, right? Not ignoring people's identity, but understanding how the vulture class, the capitalist class, the owner class uses each of our individual identities against us and get us to fight amongst ourselves about those identities rather than seeing that those are all just tools of the same, basically, monster, right? So there's a lot of things they knew back then that we struggle to understand now. And so on today's show, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the origins of the original May Day, the real Labor Day, which has been changed to Loyalty Day in America, which I didn't know until recently, but apparently it's been a thing for a long time because that erasure is extremely important to America. Everywhere else in the world, May Day is still a day for workers. But in America, officially, it's Loyalty Day. And that should tell you everything you need to know about this country in specific as it regards the workers. Now, as you know, I like to use the word the people and not the workers, but it all amounts to the same thing, right? Because as we'll see when we talk about the IWW, the Wobblies, they were in basically a radical workers union, right? Not just for skilled workers, but for anyone that made their living working, right? And that was the kind of intersectional solidarity that they had even then. They welcomed women, they welcomed black people, they welcomed everyone. And that's what we need to be doing right now because as we see, there are attacks coming down against each individual identity, right? And before we're tempted to say that, well, Roe V Wade is just about people who can have babies, it's just about abortion rights, right? Let's not fall into that trap because this is an issue for all of us. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie all of this back together into not only where we are today, but where we need to go tomorrow and how we can do that in a way that serves us all and gets us out from under the capitalist overclass that is basically eating all of us slowly, some of us less slowly than others. So let me introduce our panel. We're going to have all of these excellent people help us discuss these topics. And also if you are watching live, please feel free to drop a comment in the box. And if we can get to it, we'll address it right here live. So let me go to my left here, and we'll start with Austin. Austin, let everyone know who you are.
Hi there, my name's Austin. I'm here with PVN. It's good to see everybody. I'm an Army vet, and but mostly I clean up after my kids. But it's nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Austin. And then we will go to one of our guests below Austin, and that is the excellent and fabulous Noli.
Hi, I'm Noe D. I work for a couple different news outlets, independent ones, just like here. And you can find me on YouTube or pretty much any social media account. I got one. So
Thank you, Noli. And then we'll go to my right here with Novi.
Thanks, Logan. My name is Novi, and I've been with the People's Voice for about a year now, actually. I host at the Live from the Empire. We're actually having our second episode come out on Friday, talking about the energy crisis. And I'm sorry, I'm one of the people on our research team here at PBN.
Excellent. And then below Novi is Felice.
Hey there, I'm Felice. I'm a researcher here at PBN, and I'm a mom. I'm a college student, just graduated with my associate's degree, so I'm going to be going to a different college soon, thank God. And I am going to be writing a lot on our Substack soon, so keep an eye out for that. And that's about it.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, below me is the infamous Charlie Gallo.
Hi, I'm Gallo. I'm a worker.
Hold on. We're having
Sorry.
technical difficulties.
Me.
It's okay. You know what? We'll come back to you in a second. I will just introduce myself. I am Logan Grendel. I have my own podcast, the Focused on Infinity podcast. I am a TikToker, a YouTuber, a writer, artist of various disciplines, and I am happy to have been with PVN. We used to be the Populous Voice Network, and now we have evolved into the People's Voice Network. And I look forward to continuing to bring you, unbought, unbossed type news, and always independent. We don't mess with anything that's going to essentially sully the way we bring you things as real as we can. And it's all about getting us to a better future. So let's see if we can hear Charlie now.
Can you hear me?
We can, but it's still robot land.
I'm gonna need him. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's what we'll do. What we'll do is we will get started with Felice, and Felice will give us our intro on May Day and the OG May Day, how the holiday got started, and what it meant in the beginning.
Okay, so International Workers' Day was also known as May Day. Origin started in Chicago on May 1st, 1886. There was a massive uprising of workers across the country. Workers, before they went on this strike, they were working 10-hour days, 60 hours a week, 6 days a week. Sorry, I lost my place for a second. There was a massive uprising. The workers had organized and went on strike all at once. This was before a lot of common ways of communication that we have today. And all these workers were able to connect to each other across the country. It was a sunny Saturday in Chicago. The sky was clear, and on the ground there were 30,000 workers fighting for an 8-day work week. At the time in the 19th century, working conditions were horrible, living conditions were worse, and there was no job security. They desperately needed change. All of this would be what they were striking for, and the 8-hour workday would be their huge first step towards them having more control over their lives at work. The count at the end of the day would be 300,000 across the nation. These workers would be out in solidarity in every corner of the country fighting for their rights. The strength that was shown that day made many employers immediately grant them this 8-hour workday. But at the close of the day, the fight would not be over in Chicago. On May 4th, which is today, there would be a rally outside of McCormick Works factory when they made farm equipment at the time, and the police would fire on the crowd, and it killed several workers. In response to this, there was a riot at Haymarket Square, and that would begin a few hours later. It would end in a bomb exploding in the middle of the square, and many people on both sides would die in the melee that ensued before and after the bomb went off. Of course, the blame all went on the workers. The media then, as it is now, today, is controlled by the rich, and the narrative was put that the workers were the ones inciting every bit of the violence. This would end up making a huge crackdown on labor organizations, and it would completely destroy the anarchist movement of the time. In the end, 8 worker leaders were arrested, and 4 of them would be hung. Around the world, they are seen as martyrs for the work movement they started. And everywhere else besides here, it is International Workers' Day or Labor Day.
Right. And in America, as I mentioned earlier, this comment right here. Yes, that's my question too. I did not know that Loyalty Day was a thing. And the reason I found out is because there was a proclamation by the White House. I saw it in a tweet. And I was like, okay, let me first make sure this is real, because like maybe somebody's just trolling, that Joe Biden, because it's like, I, Joe Biden, do proclaim May 1st as Loyalty Day. And I didn't know that this had been a thing for years, right? But it has been, and it's essentially American erasure of the worker struggle. And they papered over May 1st in America and gave us Labor Day, which is essentially, it's a Hallmark holiday, right? Where we're not actually talking about any, we're not talking about anarchists. We're not talking about people who fought for the 8-hour workday. We're just kind of amorphously talking about, work and workers, right? So at any rate, let's see if we can get an intro from Charlie, and then we can go back to you, Felice, to give us a little bit more on May Day and Labor Day.
How about now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. I am Charlie Gallo. I'm a sex worker. I'm a professional kinkster and fetishist, and I teach sex ed to grown-ups.
Excellent. And we asked Charlie to be here because we're going to talk about all workers, and that includes ones that even some of the people watching do not respect and appreciate, but are a part of the people, are a part of the international worker struggle, are a part of the struggle against the vulture class, whether anybody likes it or not. And that is what that is. So are we going to look at the May Day and Labor Day article, please?
Yes. So Labor Day basically was already something that was in the works before May Day was even thought of with the organizers. Can we have that come up real quick? Hold on 1 second. Can you come back to me real quick? Labor Day was actually not something that they wanted to do. We had to, this is not the right one. So can I come back real quick to this? You can
Sure.
talk about like what I already discussed and everything.
Yeah. You know what? Let's bring a couple other people in.
Yeah,
Let's
that'd
ask
be
you
good.
what you know about, or what you thought about May Day. Did you know about May Day? Did you know about Loyalty Day? Let's ask Noli.
Well, Loyalty Day I'd never heard of. I'm a firm believer that loyalty is something for a well trained dog. I won't follow anybody into hell. I will not. If I don't like what you're doing, or I think what you're doing is against my own morals or my own standards, I'm not following you. I don't care if you're my best friend. Go by yourself.
Hell yeah.
You know, I'll try to stop you if I think it's really stupid. But I mean, you know, do you? So I've never heard of Loyalty Day. I think loyalty again is just it's for dogs.
Love it.
May Day I've known about since I was small. My grandfather was really he pounded the truth into us kids no matter what school taught us. And there was so many things that like I got in trouble at school. I got sent to detention for the first time, like in the 4th grade. I was like, because I was arguing with my teacher about Red Summer and about a couple other things. Oh, the Black Wall Street, and that there was more than one, and just like she just lost her mind on me, and I got mad because she basically was calling my grandpa a liar, and I'm like, no.
That's
so
awesome.
he kind of beat that stuff into us pretty well in a gentle way.
That's very fortunate. I did not know about any of that, and yeah, no one told me about any of the the radical history of workers, or just about any of it. A lot of it just kind of went unspoken. Let's bring in Austin.
So yeah, I heard of. I'd never heard of May Day growing up. Labor Day, obviously. Definitely didn't hear Loyalty Day till the other day, and it's interesting to see that is in a response to or reaction to what was going on at the time, which was like one of the first Red Scares, and it looks like things have progressed that there might be a new Red Scare, right, coming from the reactionary wing of the universe. I don't know. I certainly hope aliens aren't reactionaries, but yeah. May Day, what's that? Hot May Day, what? Not Loyalty Day. There you go. Dad joke of the day.
Okay, and now let's bring in Novi. Novi, what did you know about, any like May Day, Labor Day, Loyalty Day?
Okay, so I was in a weird position growing up. My dad's an Eagle Scout. My older brothers are Eagle Scouts. I was in the Scouts. And I actually did a flag retirement ceremony on Flag Day for my Scout project when I was like about 13 on June 4th, which was Flag Day. So I remember learning about about May Day as being the original Labor Day when we were doing merit badges and talking about history. And that was actually a big deal. And the Scoutmaster got really, really mad about it because we weren't supposed to know that information. But I did my project for my merit badge about it. And they were talking about, for our school, it was right after the invasion because we live we have a training base right outside of town, and it's a big military area. We were talking about doing Loyalty Day more in class, and they tried doing it and nobody would actually stand up and participate unless to make fun of it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was kind of interesting to see all these kids who were military brats or from military families just like laugh like crazy about it. But May Day was actually taught as being, we were learning about it as being Labor Day in school. Like all the history teachers had Howard Zinn in the classroom. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
You
no,
went to a
like
great
they had,
school.
yeah, like they had the Texas school book, and they would just look at it like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be teaching you, and then they put it down. Okay, this is what we're actually teaching you. So, but
Um,
I know a lot of people were disfortunate growing up, and I was really lucky about it because the teachers that we had were very brave, and they were able to get away with a lot of stuff because we had a good football team and good uh, academic programs. Otherwise, the parents would have come down on it pretty hard.
Okay, and let's go now to Charlie. And yeah, what did you learn about any of the international workers' struggle in school or from people that you grew up around? You muted. You're muted still.
How about now? I was homeschooled, so aside from major Christian holidays, I learned absolutely nothing.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of what America is like. We have a couple of people who sort of learned some good things, some who learned nothing, some who learned the standard line of propaganda. And the fact that none of us knew about Loyalty Day, I don't think is actually good because I think that they kept it in there and they make a presidential proclamation kind of on the low every year just to like suddenly remind you what country you're living in, but like they're not putting it on the cover of the New York Times, right? They're not boldly emblazoning it because they know what people would think, right? And the funny thing is that under a Republican president, if they were to make a proclamation about Loyalty Day, you would get liberals and Democrats going crazy and saying like, "What? That is so authoritarian. That's like one of those communist countries. Oh no!" Right? But like they, Biden came out with it like a couple days ago and not a peep. Right? That sectarianism and that that just like that party thinking is like just such a giant problem. We're gonna get to that later. So let's move on to discussions of some of the old school workers, the IWW and Debs again and early intersectionality. These were the people that were really the people who gave us any and all of the rights we have, right? And this documentary about the Wobblies, which is what the IWW, the International Workers of the World, was known as. A documentary about them just got entered into the Library of Congress recently, and it was made in 1979. And we're going to bring that up and watch a bit of it. This is a piece from Democracy Now!, which actually covered some of the best parts of it pretty quickly. So yeah, Ludin, if you would.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. This Sunday, much of the world will celebrate May Day, International Workers' Day, amidst a wave of union organizing in the United States that includes scores of Starbucks stores and the newly formed Amazon Labor Union. We end today's show with a film that tells the story of the first union for all workers. The Wobblies is a documentary that came out in 1979, and it's just been restored and entered into the Library of Congress's National Film Registry.
What's your name? Sam Scarlett. What's your religion? The IWW. That ain't no religion. The only one I got. Are you a citizen? No, I'm an industrial worker of the world. The one who is a working man could not be denied membership for any reason, as long as he was an actual wage worker, race, creed, color, for any reason, sex, whatever.
Industrial workers of the world work, good wages, and respect. That's what they wanted for the workers. To be people, not nobody.
In the grain fields, we harvested every major grain that grew in North America. Wheat, oats, barley, rye. The heat was 110 to 112 to 114 degrees temperature out in the sun. And you could look across the plains and see a freight train from miles away. There's power in the land of working men. They stand and
The Wobblies, featuring oral histories with elderly former members of the IWW who were in their 80s and 90s in the 1970s. It's narrated by the late Roger Baldwin, one of the founders of the American Civil Liberties Union, who died in 1981. This is another clip.
But unskilled labor had almost no representation whatever. AFL didn't take in unskilled workers, and they had no voice to speak for them. It was these conditions that were largely responsible for the founding of the industrial workers of the world.
The working class and the employing class have nothing in common. Between these two classes, a struggle must go on until the workers of the world organize as a class, take possession of the earth and the machinery of production, and abolish the wage system.
I remember reading of the founding convention of the industrial workers of the world, which took place in Chicago in 1905, and headed by men who were already well known to newspaper readers. Big Bill Haywood, for instance, of the Western Federation of Miners, and Eugene V. Debs, candidate for president on the Socialist Party ticket, and Mother Jones, and many others.
Fellow workers, this is the Continental Congress of the working class. I don't give a snap of my fingers whether skilled workers join this union or not. We don't need them. There are 35 million workers in this country that aren't organized yet. What we want to establish at this time is an organization that will open wide its doors to every man or woman that earns his livelihood by brain or muscle.
Okay.
The words of
All right, so that gives you some idea about, how this all started. And, what they outline is that this was a more radical collection of workers because there was already the AFL, but they were only taking what they viewed as skilled laborers. And as I say, and, a lot of us say, there's no such thing as unskilled labor. There's under-respected labor because all labor takes skill. If you were to go and try and clean a hotel spotless in the time that a maid, that a housekeeper can do it, you wouldn't be able to. You would fail. Believe me, I can barely clean my own house in like a day, much less clean like 50 rooms spotless, right? So every job has dignity, and that is what the IWW was talking about. And the other thing that is really important to me is that they made sure to mention during a time of extreme racism, during a time of extreme misogyny, right, that these people were not only accepted but welcomed, right? They didn't ignore the discussion of women, the discussion of the plight of Black people, right? They welcomed these people. And that solidarity, that discussion, that is real class consciousness, right? And that is that's where all this got started, right? And we've gotten just so far away from that. But let me bring in the panel and get their reactions to some of what we just saw. Let's start this time with Felice.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about the fact that I actually was a housekeeper. And that job really showed me how much people do not understand how much work goes into things that they don't want to be doing. Like, I would have 30 rooms a day that I had to get clean before it was time to go home in my little time period. And there's a lot of stuff you had to do in between that. And I think that it's amazing that these people back then were fighting for workers like me. But what's really sad about it is that there's still a lot we have to do. We don't have all the rights that they were hoping we would have by now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Now let's pop over to Noli.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Really, I think that if it weren't for the May Day movement, the strike, and including the deaths, I think that people need to recognize that people did die. there was, I think, one person shot and a couple of people beaten to death in Chicago. And their lives had an impact on which way this went. I also kind of feel that we haven't really made much progress since then.
Yeah.
I think we're still in the same shit show.
Unfortunately correct. Yeah. And the funny thing about that is that, even though it was workers that died, what they did was, from the reason that everybody hates anarchists and everybody thinks anarchy is like so dangerous and scary now is because of this event. It's been over 100 years that this happened, and it was the anarchists that were the victims, right? It was the and they were the ones who are, it's American propaganda, and our propaganda is so deep that one thing happens, they spin it, and then for centuries after, we're still afraid of the wrong people. It was always the vulture class that started this and that actually did all the damage, and guess who got blamed for it. Let's go over to Austin.
So something that was to go off what Noli was saying, that the folks died and they died for their rights. And often in this country, in the United States, we often talk about the soldiers and service members that died for freedoms. But, as much as blood was shed for what we do have, whatever that may be, it appears that the average worker is the persons who, not to be forgotten, that seems to have actually gotten us some economic freedoms of some sort, like the Weeknd, right? Yeah. Shout out to the Weeknd. Love that guy. All right.
All right. Let's go to Charlie.
I'm thinking about the comparison that you brought up with housekeepers, and let me tell you, if they weren't there, you would definitely notice. And I have a lot of gratitude to maids and housekeepers, and in my experience, sex workers are the best guests to have at your hotel or Airbnb, God forbid. We leave no trace, and sex workers are also excellent tippers, always, just like in my experience. And I mean, even though the entire concept of tipping is racist and fucked up, but it's still like it exists and is there, right? And like if you go, there's like a social contract that if you go to a restaurant or like various other services that there's a tip involved, and if you don't want to tip, then don't go out to eat.
Absolutely. That is, it's like the conditions that started it were not good, but since this is the world we have right now and the way that things work, you have to do right by the workers. That's just absolutely. And Novi, last but not least.
One of the things that it reminded me of, they gave up their lives to get us these protections that we have now, such as the 8-hour work week, weekends. And in many places, this is being rolled back. And, yes. Now we're having attacks on delivery drivers. One of my family members was working in an establishment, and they had to hide in the back room because an irate customer threatened to shoot the place. Wow. Last week. There's a famous quote that you have nothing to lose but your chains. And the privileged class doesn't care about us, regardless of what profession you're in. They view us as being lesser, as being their servants to bend to their will, and easily disposed of whenever we're no longer seen as valuable. So we have to band together. And what this entire episode and what our entire network's about, we have to band together and fight and do everything we can, because otherwise what they suffered for 100 years ago is going to be in vain, and I don't want that to happen.
Felt. Absolutely. And that is as good a time as any to switch over to the discussion of modern unionization and the current massive wave of new unions that is happening at some of the largest companies and some of the most and worst, most rapacious companies. But yeah, unionization is happening on a scale that we haven't seen in this country in years. Unions were basically hollowed out by like starting a little bit before Reagan, but like the Reagan Revolution really did a whole lot of what brings us to now, even though it's what the country always wanted in the first place. Like, let's keep that in mind. But if we could bring up the article from Penn Live on modern unionization, and I will read you a bit from that to get us started on the modern struggle for more rights for workers. Here we go. Yeah, scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to read that here. Okay, so April 1st, 2022 may go down as a pivotal day in the history of American unions. In a result that could reverberate in workplaces across the U.S., the independent Amazon labor union, first formed in 2020 by Chris Smalls, an Amazon worker fired for protesting what he saw as inadequate COVID-19 safety precautions, got the better of the previously successful anti-union efforts of the online retailer. It means that Smalls' warehouse in Staten Island, New York, will be the first to have a unionized workforce. And I will make sure to mention that I'm glad they mentioned that anti-union efforts, the reason that unions fail is because there's propaganda against them, right? Money goes into stopping unionization at every level, right? They talk about unions negatively, in media, but even more importantly, they have people in these workplaces trying to get them not to unionize and putting propaganda out there to make them not want to do it. But let's go back to the article. On the same day, Starbucks Workers United, an organization affiliated with Service Employees International Union, won yet another election, making it 10 out of 11 wins for the union since first succeeding in Buffalo in December 2021. This time it was the chain's flagship roastery in New York City that opted to unionize. The organizing campaign has now spread to over 170 Starbucks nationwide. Several more Starbucks elections will take place in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, a rerun election at the Amazon factory in Bessemer, Alabama will depend on the outcome of several hundred contested ballots. Even if Amazon wins, the retail, wholesale, and department store union has, at very least, come tantalizingly close in what was deemed a long-shot union vote. Something is definitely happening in the labor movement. And let's scroll down a little bit. As a scholar of the labor movement who has observed union drives for 2 decades, what I find most striking as the victories is the almost as striking as the victory, is the unconventional nature of the organizing campaigns. Both the Starbucks and Amazon Staten Island campaigns have been led by determined young workers, inspired by pro-union sentiment and political movements such as Bernie Sanders' presidential bids, Black Lives Matter, and the DSA. These individuals are spearheading the efforts for workplace reform rather than professional union organizers. Indeed, one would be hard-pressed to find many experienced organizers among the recent successful campaigns. Instead, the campaigns have involved a significant degree of self-organization. That is, workers talking union to each other in the warehouse and coffee shops and reaching out to colleagues in other shops in the same city and across the nation. This marks a sea change from the way the labor movement has traditionally operated, which has tended to be more centralized and led by seasoned union officials. And yeah, we can stop it there. So the last part of that is the most important to me, right? The modern wave of unionization, as back in the day, was led by people, right? And now, since it is basically happening in a way that is from the bottom up, it's getting legs on it, and it's happening so much faster than we ever thought that it could have happened, right? I have even been kind of a naysayer to unions, in no way anti-union. My stance is that, we need everyone to be unionized, but we also need to get rid of capitalism. So it's a both and kind of thing, right? Because we do need to be able to organize against the owners, but we also need to upend the owners. Like, they got to go, or we're never going to get any peace. So again, it's a both and. But the fact that this unionization is happening so fast is a testament to the fact that if we do these things from the bottom up, right, and we let the people lead, we don't have a professional class of union organizers. Because look, I have friends who are teachers. The teachers union has basically been co-opted, right? It's been professionalized, and so the people who get the higher ranks in it are a little bit more favorable to the government rather than to the teachers and to the students they serve. And that is one of the things that has hollowed out what people think of unions, right? So let me just get some of your opinions on what you knew about the current unionization and what you think, what you think it will lead to in our current state of affairs. Yeah, go ahead, Novi.
I have worked so many jobs since high school where they have done anti-union training videos, and they have tried to abuse our rights, like saying things like, "Oh, if you don't take your lunch break during your shift, we'll pay you for your meal at the end of it." Things like that. So, which, it's something that you've got to be aware of, and and thinks that unions are a necessary step toward ultimately getting rid of the privileged class and becoming a better society as a result. So one of the things that I've always found very frustrating about the way unions were traditionally run is because they were relying on these outsiders, it was hard to get people to trust them. And because they're not coming from where you're coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't have the same struggles. They don't have the same fears. And why would you trust them to have your best interests in heart? And that's one of the things that's really happening. I feel like the teachers union could be revitalized by becoming a grassroots organization, and same thing with many of the other unions that are pre-existing. But they're going to have a sea change as well. I also think it's deeply ironic in a very sad way that the only really strong union in the United States is the police union, and that has to be changed.
Absolutely. No police unions. We should have unions. We need unions. Police
but
unions.
Not a police union.
No,
We should
police
not
unions
have police in general.
Yeah.
I mean, let's take it all the way there, Felice. That's exact. Yes. Actually, and now let's go to you. Let's get your thoughts on the current unionization drive.
I'm really excited about it. We've actually had a really good interview with Haley Fagan. She's from Rochester, New York, and a Starbucks union member that Andrew and Z did on the channel. And when they talked to her, it was just really cool to talk about like how the organization went and how it all started. And like I said, I'm really excited because that means there's people noticing a little bit more than they were before. People are realizing, hey, I deserve more than what I'm getting. And that makes me really happy because it seems like a lot of people have gotten into this mode of just accepting whatever's given to them because they're like, at least I'm getting something. But we all deserve so much more than that. Yes. We deserve to live our lives happily and without all this stress and worry. We're not made for this. We're spiritual beings, and we can't be spiritual or beings really anymore because we're all just working and working and working. Yeah. So I'm excited that this seems like a good change in the right direction for everyone because people are starting to really support these unions as well, not just the fact that they're happening.
Awesome.
Right. Like, for example, we shouldn't be content like saying, oh, at least I have a home, no matter if it floods or it has, a black mold infestation. Everybody should have homes that are safe.
Yeah.
And same thing with our jobs. Yeah, we can't be satisfied with the bare minimum.
And let's, you know what, I want to bring in Noli and Charlie, but I kind of want to shift a little bit as we move to the next thing into talking about how this was led. Also, they talk about efforts of like the DSA and Black Lives Matter and other things, which basically kind of helped to wake up the populace about other specific struggles. But that led to, right, this unionization drive. So Noli, do you want to kind of weigh in on any of the above?
Sure. I think that it wasn't just those groups of people who I don't know, kind of called to all the workers and stuff, and kind of drew attention to other things that were going on. If it weren't for COVID-19, I think a lot of this would still be getting ignored.
Yeah, that's real.
I think that if people weren't sitting at home going, holy crap, what the hell am I going to do? I've already cleaned my baseboards 8 times. My sock drawer has been reorganized 20 times. I can't handle this. I'm going to see what's on YouTube. They would never know if it weren't for shows like yours, shows like Independent News Network, RBN, several different channels who talk about this stuff, and they took cameras out and were right there, in the streets with people protesting and finding out what the problems were. And people started to realize their value, I think, just a little bit during COVID-19.
Yeah.
I deserve better than this. I have friends who work at grocery stores who are considered essential workers, and they put their lives in danger so that you could go buy your damn groceries. I mean,
yeah,
they should have gotten compensated in some form, some way. And I think that people realize that, and that kind of pushed them out the door and into the streets.
Yeah, that's super true. COVID-19 it's one of those it's been one of those situations where it's like, it's been obviously just a giant curse, but if you think about it, it's the first time that everybody had to stop, right? And that's why they're not doing anything about it now. Because when people have a chance to stop and actually look at and consider their lives and the conditions of their lives and what it's like to actually have time to think, what it's like to actually have time to spend with your family. I mean, more time than you want to in some cases, but to actually spend time with the people that you love and care about, and think about how you want to fill your days, right? Because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Like Felice said, we're spiritual creatures having an earthly experience, but all of our days are so regimented by how hard they make us work and how hard they make things. And always remember, everything is like it is because somebody made it that way. There is nothing natural about the way that we live. Nothing. It is invented, and it is honestly one of the worst way of, people are like, oh, what do you want to go? You want to go back and run around naked in the forest and have to pick roots and grubs? Yes, the hell I do.
Yes, please. Can we?
Yeah.
And listen, now what we're talking about now is okay, listen, there are ways we can keep. We're going to talk about how we're going to move into the future, but yes, the way that we live now is horrible, and thank you for pulling that out of that discussion, Noli. Charlie, any thoughts before we move on to the next item?
Yeah, I agree with you, Logan, completely that we shouldn't need unions, but along with the tipping thing, as long as we're gonna realistically live in a capitalistic society for a long enough period of time, even under the most optimistic circumstances, that we do need unions, and they're great. And until I was 26, the bus drivers union that my dad was in had excellent insurance, and I didn't realize until I turned 26 how awful not having insurance is. Public insurance sucks, and I have chronic physical and mental illness that I live with, and because I guess I'm here to make everything about sex work, being a sex worker has kind of saved my life, really. I used to work 80 plus hours a week, and in restaurants, and that was what I went to school for. And unless you're in a unique circumstance, restaurants generally don't have any kind of healthcare to speak of. And when I lost that insurance, until I became a sex worker, which allowed me to make some decisions around my healthcare. I could pay for it, is what I'm trying to say. The type of healthcare that I wanted and chose that should be available, public insurance just didn't cover, and being a sex worker allowed me to just pay for my chosen healthcare myself, and that was not a reality that I had beforehand. In addition to the fact that, like, so to me, one of the greatest things about sex work is, I do make more money than I would be able to do it like in any other form of service industry that I'm aware of. But the thing that it really affords me is time. Like, yes, absolutely. The work days and weekends, like, those are all really important. Like, I get complete control over my work days and my weekends, and I'll tell you, I have more than 2 days off every week, and everybody should. And I am, like, absolutely not free from living in capitalism, but by, like, being my own boss, I do get to step out of certain aspects of capitalism that, people are working very hard to, like, regulate those things, and I've just sort of, like, stepped out of them, and I get the freedom of, like, wow, I'm really having a bad mental health day. Guess what? Like, I don't have to call anybody. Like, I don't have to ask anyone to take the time to care for my physical, psychological, and emotional health. Like, I just decide.
Yeah, that's excellent, and that is another good thing about, as a freelance person myself, largely, that it's similar. I mean, I have more of a, like, daily, everyday kind of grind, but, like, the way that wage labor itself is a bad thing, right? Like, whatever the wage is that you're getting, an hour of your life is invaluable, right? There is no hour of your life that is, and the fact that we're still talking about $7.25 an hour nationally, like, that is the fact that we're not more upset about that every single fucking day shows you how beaten we are, how indoctrinated we are, right? How much we just haven't been able to get out from under our own propaganda. And like we were just talking about, right? The time of lockdown was the first time a lot of people thought about it, and a lot of people made the decision where they were like, I can get, like, a couple of dollars, when they were giving us a couple of dollars, whatever, and have, maybe not quite enough money, but also have my life back. So I'd rather be a little bit closer to starving and have my entire day free than go to work for 40 hours and still be just as fucked, essentially.
Yeah.
So let's go to we're gonna move to Roe v. Wade, because it's something that needs to be talked about, but we're going to talk about it from an angle that's going to tie it to the rest of this, because a lot of the discussion I've seen surrounding it has been specifically about reproductive rights, and it is so much more than that, and the underpinnings of it are, frankly, terrifying, and it's going to give us the world that conservatives, deep conservatives especially, have wanted and basically made America to be. I mean, let's face it, right? This is not new. This is what they've always wanted and what they used to have, and they're about to get it back. And who's going to lead us on this is Novi. Is going to talk about, a lot of the deeper meanings of Roe v. Wade and this current struggle.
Hey, y'all. So, for those who have watched the show, I grew up in the South, actually, in a small town in Texas. My parents are conservative, but many of my neighbors were, and I went to an evangelical church before I grew up, and after some time being agnostic, converted to Islam. So I could, I know a lot about where these people are coming from. The way this decision is written dating back to English Commonwealth law, specifically the Hayes Warning, which is where we get the whole language regarding rape. Is she asking for it? What was she wearing? Is it corroborated? Did she report it right after? All these things. There's now standard procedure in rape trials, as now common questions when anybody says that they were sexually assaulted by somebody else. And the way this was written additionally goes back and overturns the right to privacy, which wasn't specifically cited in the Constitution, but was heavily applied and was later tried through the Fourth Amendment, the 14th, and through decisions such as Griswold and Roe versus Wade. By overturning Roe versus Wade and writing the decision in this way, you could go through all these right to privacy laws, such as gay marriage, sodomy laws, pornography, abortion, contraception, interracial marriage, rape between a married couple, anything that goes back to the Comstock laws that were passed in the 1800s that have to do with sexual promiscuity and morality can all go dating back to that. This is not good. You're basically telling people that we're going back to before the Civil War legally. And aside from it having a lot of legal issues and being very problematic just the way it's written, the religious precedent they cite doesn't make any sense either. In Christianity, they have a right to abortion. Same in Islam, Judaism. Actually, all the religions do, within certain exceptions. And furthermore, religion shouldn't have any bearing on law. And any court cases that say, hey, abortion is part of my religion, and you are abusing my right to freely practice it by saying I can't have an abortion. If those lawsuits get denied before the Supreme Court, saying yes, your religious rights aren't being persecuted, then it's weakening the First Amendment. So it's causing a lot of problems.
Yeah. Thank you for outlining, laying that all out for us, because that is really what I want to highlight here. Because a lot of this, I am on the internet, as one does, and on the internet, when you put something out there about abortion, one of the first things you hear is like, well, then don't have an abortion, or conversely, you'll get people saying like, well, why does this affect you? Like, if you don't want children, you don't have children, or you don't have a uterus, like, why is this important? And like, both of those arguments amount to the same thing, which is, we don't know why you care about other people. We don't know why you care about other people's rights. Why do you care about other people's rights? And here's the thing. In America, it is such an individualistic society, and we are taught to care about ourselves because, frankly, let's keep it a stack. Like, they make us have this competitive society, right? We have to essentially compete because it is essentially a zero-sum game. Everything we're taught is like, there is one person who's at the top, and maybe you can get to the top if you bite and claw and scratch, and the people that bite and claw and scratch get to the top and get more accolades, get a bigger piece of the pie, right? So we have internalized capitalism, essentially, right? And that's what we need to rid ourselves of, because as humans, we're supposed to care about each other. You don't have to teach children to share. You have to teach them not to share, right? It is natural for two children sitting next to each other. I mean, okay, there's some selfish kids out there, whatever, but you know what I mean. The human instinct is to share. Like, and even if it's not an individual human's instinct, if we were left to our own devices, socially, we would teach each other to share. And this issue is not just about abortion access. And the reason they're pinpointing abortion access is because, well, Christians have been propagandized into thinking that they're not allowed to. When the only thing in the Bible, I'm going to say this, it's true, go look it up for yourself. The only thing the Bible says directly about abortion is in favor of it. It says, oh yeah, please, Novi, if you have something on this one.
Specifically, it's in Leviticus, and it says, if a man believes that his wife was unfaithful to him, the priest can make an elixir that will cause the woman to miscarry the child.
Yes. Yes.
So, and Judaism, the Torah, and the Talmud go into more explicit saying that the mother's life should always be protected over that of the unborn child. In Islam, it is the same thing. In other religions, it's the same thing. So abortion is considered, is not forbidden in any religion, at least as far as I could tell. So not only is it religion should have a bearing effect, but even if we were saying the religion had bearing effect, they don't have any reasoning or logic behind it.
Yeah, it goes against the First Amendment. The First Amendment says that the government can't do anything about religion, but that's a lie. You know what I mean?
I'd like to say something about religion.
Please.
As I mentioned, I was homeschooled, and my family is still, I guess, very Catholic. So I grew up in the church until I was 18. So like I have like a pretty strong grasp of some of the more internal workings of some of these minds. Actually, my mom in particular is rabidly anti-choice. She's like a what's it called? Like a single item voter, something.
Single issue
voter is literally the only that she just chooses the anti-choice person every time. Doesn't matter what else they have to say.
Wow.
And she's told me that like directly. So I think that it is a challenge for people who did not, and I'm not speaking to y'all's backgrounds, but just like I hear this thing about like what the Bible does or doesn't say about abortion like a lot, and you're completely right, of course, but to like understand a little bit of what's going on in the mind of some of these people, it is true that the Bible doesn't say anything more than that specifically about abortion, but, and I'm talking specifically about Catholics here, the Bible does say a lot about thou shalt not kill. And the 10 Commandments are really not viewed by Catholics as like just those 10 things. Every single one gets broken down and expanded upon and interpreted. And thou shalt not kill is like very easily interpreted towards abortion. And people who are making decisions based on religion they're not making logical decisions, and it's not even like an argument against them that they're not making logical decisions, because decisions based on faith being like, it's supposed to be completely separate from logic, because logic is like understanding and faith is just faith. Like if you have faith, you don't need understanding, you don't need reason, you don't need anything else to explain it to you. And in fact, if you need something else to explain it to you, then it's not real faith. So if you have real faith, you're just going to believe it no matter what. And you can't have a debate against that.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's
which
very
is
true.
Which is why I'm a Muslim now.
Let's go to Felice and Austin right quick, and then I realize the time is going very quickly, so I want to make sure we have enough time to tie everything together and to give people some solutions before we wrap up. So yeah, Austin and Felice, do you want to pop in? Let's go for Austin.
So this is just so much, right? It's exactly what, honestly, I believe the Democrats and the Republicans have slowly inched towards over the last 50 years. And because the Democrats, they want to keep squeezing the cow. That's us. We're the cows, apparently, keep wanting to milk the cow. They just almost immediately, there's within an hour, 7 million raised. This was a few days ago. I'm sure it's much more by now. And, at the core of this, something, yes, there is obviously the control element. and the control of somebody's body, a majority of the population, literally, and the daggum, I was going to say something profound and amazing, but no, the Roe versus Wade, it's human stock capital. That's what I was trying to get to. Yeah. They want babies for labor. Like, yeah, they're going to throw some away. That's what you do with babies. You take some, you line them all up, kick them off the mountain, Sparta style. This is America. That's how we do it. Yeah. So that was the other thing, labor.
Yeah, that's really does that. I mean, that is the, in terms of like power, one of the biggest things about all of this. It's just about having more people to feed into the grinder, whether it's into the military or into, you know, the workforce or whatever it is, you know. And let's also make sure to add that it is certain kinds of babies, because they're like, they have ways already of controlling. They have immigrants and they have indigenous people and they have black people largely under control in different ways, right? So they don't have white birthing people under control. And that is what this is about. And one of the reasons that, for better and worse, this is getting people activated is that some people are starting to see themselves being affected by the government that's been fucking everybody else over. And that is it's both good that everyone is starting to see it, and also really speaks to a deep selfishness that it's taken this, right? Because we all know who has been dying most from C-19, right? We all know, for example, what kinds of immigrants are allowed to come in with open arms and which ones are still in pens at the border, right? We know that this is not just about, and that's why, again, we're bringing all these things together, because it's always all connected. There is no such thing as one issue. We are a constantly connected net of circumstances. And there is one enemy. It's the vulture class. It's the capitalist class, and it's international. But they have different ways of working on us. And we have to see that they're just different heads of the same beast, and we have to work together against them. And Felice, do you want to pop in?
Yeah, I just wanted, there's actually a few points that we've gone over. Schools teach us that we need to be cattle in order to work in this society. It's from the very beginning of when we go into school, where we're beginning to be indoctrinated into just working and working and working until we can't anymore. And then you need to work a little bit more after that. It's been turning us into narcissists forever now. We're not supposed to be empathetic. And for those of us like myself who are naturally very empathetic, you seem to find yourself in a place where you don't feel right in this world. And I think that there's a lot more people who are coming to realize that, no, it's not you that something's wrong with it. It's the world. And with Roe versus Wade being overturned possibly soon, I think a lot of people are starting, like you said, to be like, oh no, this is affecting me. And unfortunately, that is what's gotten their attention. And what people don't realize is that this is affecting everyone. You know someone who is gay, who is married to someone who is a different race than they are. You know someone who will be affected by this if you are not directly affected by this. Your right to privacy is under attack right now. This isn't just abortion. And people need to get that through their heads, that this is a domino effect. And we have to start fighting this now, before it gets to the point where we can't anymore, or it ends up in a way bigger situation than anyone really wants.
Just absolutely to all of that. Thank you very much for saying that. So let's go to quickly tying it all together, and we're just going to briefly touch on one thing that we didn't touch on in any way, and that is the digital world. And one of the things I want to talk about in terms of that is Sesta Fosta, which was preceded by, Sesta Fosta and the Earn It Act as well. Like, these are two bills that said they were going to be going after, like, protect children, but really what it was just about, like, messing with sex workers. Like, let's just keep it a buck, right? And those two bills are about, what are they about? Similar to Roe v. Wade, privacy, when it comes down to it, right? And Charlie, do you want to give us some of your thoughts on those two things?
Yeah, so Oscar Wilde, problematic phase, he said, everything in the world is about sex, except for sex. Sex is about power. And every time the ruling class does anything, it seems to be about power. Like, kind of money too, but like they have so much, rich people have like so much money that they have to like, I feel like the money is like the penultimate addiction, and right beyond that is power. I don't think that there's anything for like a human to achieve, like capitalistically speaking, beyond as much power as they can accrue. And
they're kind of the same thing, right?
Say that?
And they're kind of the same thing in this world, right?
Right, sure. Yes, they're wrapped up in each other. Yeah. And so what Sesta Fosta, a couple of things that it did. So it was masquerading as targeting human sex trafficking. What it really did was make life and work like much more difficult and dangerous for like adult consenting sex workers. It is really important to like, they just like conflated sex trafficking and sex, they very much on purpose conflated sex trafficking and sex work. Imagine conflating like undocumented workers working for like pennies in the hot sun in like the orange fields in California with farm workers who are, consenting to do those jobs and haven't been like forced into those things by the horrible circumstances that they're in. Like, they're two separate things, and sex trafficking and sex work are two different things, although there can be overlap. And so like one of the things that Sesta Fosta did was they made it illegal to advertise sex work. So previously, the laws were mostly about like the exchange of money for sexual favors, and now they have like it's almost like created a thought crime. Like, they've made something illegal like before any sex work actually happens. And one of the big things that happened was they took down Backpage. Backpage was, I think, the most widely used advertising platform in the United States and very popular around the world. And sex workers used this relatively cheap and accessible platform to advertise online. So they didn't have to do street-based work, which is much more dangerous. It gave them the ability to screen clients online by obtaining personal information from clients. It created a safety net for when they met that person. And that was lost. The advertising platforms that exist now are generally much more expensive, not as widely used. So it's like harder to find the clientele, and it's hard for clientele to find sex workers. And I don't have like the exact quote with me, but I just watched a documentary about sex trafficking, and they interviewed a detective who was online, and what she was doing was looking for sex traffickers on sex work platforms. And what she said was that since Backpage had been shut down, Backpage was the predominant source of consenting like sex work users. It was also used by sex traffickers, and Backpage actively worked with police when suspicious ads were flagged or reported. They passed those things on to law enforcement. So Backpage was also one of the top locations where sex traffickers were actually caught and apprehended. And since Backpage has been shut down, this woman whose name I can't remember in the documentary, the name I can't remember, she said that it is now like looking for a needle in a haystack. The advertising platforms and the sex traffickers have become so diffuse. They don't know where to go. They don't have relationships with people who run the websites. No one is, funneling suspicious activity to them. They have actually created more dangerous, violent scenarios for sex workers and the victims of sex trafficking.
Wow. And that is all right. And so that is the direct result of what they did. But also another one is that just generally less privacy for everyone, right? Fewer ways for people to do things that are considered prurient, right? In a safe way, because that's really what it's all about, is letting people do what the hell they want in the safest way possible. Yeah. Okay. And do you want to talk about the Earn It Act briefly before we move on, or?
I'm actually a little upset. Can I just
No. Absolutely. So, yes. Anyway, the reason that I wanted to bring that in is because as I said earlier, sex workers are workers, right? I saw this meme. It was like, some people are like, sex work is work, so it's bad. Some people are like, sex work is sex, so it's bad. And it's like, no. Sex is good. Sex is a good thing, okay? We don't do sex negativity here. That is not for... Sex negativity never helps anyone, right? If you are a sex-repulsed person, if you are asexual, that is fine for you, right? That is for you. It's just like everything else, just like religion. These are personal beliefs. These are not things that should be legislated. These are things that do not work well for the people. And when you allow them to be legislated on the people, what you're doing is you're opening the door for what? Attacks against privacy and consolidation of power. And what does this all come down to, right? We have, tying all this together, we have Seth DeFoster, we have the anti-LGBTQ bills. We have internet censorship that is literally Mint Press got shut down by PayPal because they were putting out information that was against the orthodoxy, right? We had on this very network, we had Lee Camp, who had his show taken off because because of RT, but it wasn't just RT, it was also just his stuff. So we have that. We have increased military spending, right? We're giving billions to Ukraine, and we can't find $5 in the couch cushions to give to people who still haven't been able to get back to solvency from COVID and weren't solvent to begin with. Let's keep that a stack. Increased police spending. Anybody who tells you anything got defunded is fucking lying to you, and they're doing it on purpose. Right? Nothing got defunded. Whether or not defund was a good... Now we're arguing over whether or not defund was a good slogan, right? We're not even arguing about the fact that no one got defunded and that they actually got more money. We just saw in Los Angeles, right? Protests, LAPD whooping ass. There will be no accountability. Because why? Because the police are not there to protect us. They are there to make sure we don't get out of hand. We are occupied. We are controlled, top to bottom. That is the reality, right? And a lot of the squabbles that we get into about, who deserves rights, who doesn't deserve rights, how much money does someone deserve if they're a burger flipper. This is what they fucking want. They want us fighting about that stuff because what they're doing is they're building. Look, when they found out that that information had been leaked about Roe v. Wade, what happened? What was the first thing they did? They put up a fucking fence because they knew we might be coming for them. That they didn't decide, oh, you know what? Now that that's leaked, let's see what the people want. Let's see what we can do about this. No, because they do not care. The Democrats do not care. The Republicans do not care. And let me say this also. We spend a lot of time dunking on Democrats because we are more personally hurt by them because they were supposed to be on our side. But sometimes you got to focus on the people with the flamethrowers. Okay? Republican states are becoming what the rest of the country is going to become. We have to sometimes focus on the people who are at the spear point, right? Because calling out hypocrisy is great, but nobody cares about hypocrisy. The people who are hypocrites know they're hypocrites, and they're doing it on purpose. They want us to get spun out about their hypocrisy while they do whatever the fuck they're going to do anyway, right? We have to keep the next one. No student loan cancellation. Why? Because why would the person, our president, who made it so that you can't get rid of student loans, why on earth would he cancel student loans? Even though he could today, right now, with the stroke of a pen. Okay? That could be gone right now. All federal student loans. He has that power. Right? No COVID action. They're not doing anything else. They literally, the CDC itself, the Center for Disease Control, okay, to control the disease, they decided to change the metrics for how they measure what constitutes a dangerous level of it. From one day to the next, we went from every state in the red to every state in the green. No problem. Nothing had changed except for the accounting. All of this is the same thing. It is a consolidation of power, right? And all of this is anti-worker. It is against the people. And if we don't all accept each other's struggles as real, as valid, as a necessary part of our own struggles, they're going to win. And they're very close to winning right now. Let me just get you all to say a quick thing about what you think is a way that we can move forward, because I always like to end with solutions and things that we could do and ways that we can get out from under this, miserable condition that we find ourselves to be in. Let's start with Novi. Do you want to start?
Sure. So in theory, the Congress could pass a bill passing the right to privacy or passing something coding Roe v. Wade into law. Same thing with the George Floyd bill and the voting rights bill named after John Lewis. But all those bills have stalled, and Joe Manchin has said that he's not going to overturn the filibuster. So that's probably not going to happen. I mean, it's great to hope that it bites, but, let's try to be realistic here. Actually actionable is donating to local abortion care funds, helping people to get to locations so that they can get safe abortions. Not just for people to get abortions, but looking out for your fellow people who are LGBT, who are anybody who might be affected by these decisions and the other decisions to become, which, as we stated, is just about damn everybody. So we all need to band together. Working with your local DSA, Communist Party, anybody, I don't care. Make up the green men from Mars and get together and fight. And do something. Because the politicians aren't going to do shit. If they were, we wouldn't be in this mess.
Absolutely, Novi. Well said. We got to just say more yes and less no this, right? Because if you don't like the DSA, that's fine. You don't got to don't like break your fingers, writing screeds about how they're not doing enough. Just go do something else. Just do some different work, Do you like the Communist Party? Great. Do you like your local, community garden? Do that. Great. Just do stuff. Who's next? Would you like to go next? Felice?
Yes, definitely, because I'm angry. Especially
too.
after what Charlie said and everything, because I'd heard about that, but I hadn't looked into it. And I had already decided I was going to say this, but it just really definitely cemented that all this is bullshit. This is all bullshit. No one cares about anything but what lines their pockets or what's going to do something to make them be voted in and all this bullshit, because half the people who are in Congress were using Backpage, and it was safer. And it was making it so people would be able to earn a living doing what they usually want to do. That's not a problem. And we need to, I don't know if we should say abolish the legislative branch and the court and the elective branch. Just get rid of all of it. We have to redo all of this. We need to rise up as a people, and we need to get these people out of power. We cannot let this continue. Every single day, it gets worse and worse and worse. And they're trying to take our rights away more and more. And they show at every little corner, they only care about themselves. And we are the only people who are going to be able to do anything. And in the past, people have done it. And it goes for a little bit and it gets rolled back because people lose interest. We can't let that happen again. This is why this needs to be different. We need to hear all these screams of people who are wanting something to change and actually do something about it. We need to get on the streets. We need to get out, and we need to be fighting now, not next week, now. And that's my little angry rant for the moment.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Agreed, because the Earth's on fire anyways.
Yeah.
What do we got to lose?
Burning or drowning, one way or the other. Let's go for Austin. Solutions. What can we do, Austin?
So I was looking and thinking, and wrote down some steps. Step 1, get bag. Step 2, Google public servant addresses. Step 3, shit in bag. Step 4, light on fire and put at address. That's all. That's pretty much my only plan.
I mean, love it. I will add as a caveat, we of the People's Voice Network do not support nor condone illegal activities, nor the placing of feces or excrement, flaming or otherwise, on anyone's doorstep, even though their addresses are definitely a matter of public record. Charlie?
Get birth control. Buy Plan B. It is, I didn't do a deep dive on this, but it's usually about $45 at the pharmacy, but I saw online you can buy it in bulk for $20 a pill. There might be even cheaper ways to do that. Like I said, I didn't do a deep dive, but have it on, I ordered 10 packages, so I guess it was $200 to have on hand. I'm on hormonal birth control. I use condoms when I have sex with anyone aside from my partner. But I don't care what your arrangement of organs might be. If you don't need this, you will know somebody who needs this. You have friends that have wounds, and if abortion rights are taken away, we need to have they are. What do I mean if they did? We need to have everything on hand that for harm reduction that is possible. And while I think that abortion should be free and completely legal to anybody and completely accessible, I also think that a little bit of grown-up sex education could help us no one wants to have an abortion, and with a little bit more like knowledge and support and unshaming of our bodies, a lot of people would realize that they were at risk for pregnancy way before they ever needed an abortion. And so to like support people just having that information, it is much cheaper and much less traumatic to take Plan B than to have an abortion, even though abortion should be completely accessible. And as those rights are taken away, we just need to like arm ourselves as much as we can.
There's something I'd like to quickly add when we're talking about harm reduction. If you have two things. One, if you have a illness such as PCOS, you can still get pregnant, and you're also at greater risk of miscarriage. So that's something to keep in mind. Two, if you are above 195 pounds, the only effective form of birth control is an IUD. So, Plan B will not work as well if you're over 195 pounds. The upper weight limit is 155. I don't know why they have a thing against chubby people, but
fat phobia is real.
Yeah, but I got to get my IUD a new one put in this year, and I'm trying to get it done as soon as possible. And I recommend anybody who can get pregnant, even if you think it's a remote possibility.
You know what? I might be getting a butt IUD in solidarity.
Let me know how that goes.
You know what? Yeah, this is a family show.
I didn't realize this was a family show.
No, it's not. It's not. I was saying that to myself to stop myself. No, yes. All of what you said is super valuable and super important, and thank you for sharing it. I have, for my wrap up here, I have what I think is the only plan for more than just one issue or the other, for the entire kit and caboodle. And for me, that's why I'm here, right? Because I care about each individual. I care about each individual person, right? I mean, there's some people, well, you know what I mean. I care about us as humans being able to live better than we ever have been able to during our lives, during several generations, right? Because for the past 400, 500, 600 years, right, things have been miserable. And people say things keep getting better and better because we have the internet, or because there's like 6 different kinds of softness of toilet paper, and you should have a bidet anyway. But like, seriously, those choices are not what make the life good, right? We don't have freedom. We don't have, and none of us do. And from the struggles back at the beginning in the early 1900s to now, conditions, like Noli said, things have not changed. In many ways, they have gotten cosmetically better, but for all intents and purposes, they have gotten worse. Because back then, you couldn't be surveilled like you can be surveilled now. They have ways of controlling us now that they couldn't ever have even imagined back then. They have weapons now, which is one of the things I'm going to say is going to be a little bit controversial, which is that every protest we do from here on should be strategic. You should never leave a protest without contacts of new people that you have not met, without ways that you can meet next, right? Because my political journey began like 2014, and I went to so many protests. I went to ones that had parade permits, and we marched, and like the cops were there, and like, it was a parade. I'm sorry, it's true. They literally have the same permit as a parade for a lot of these protests. And I don't say that to be insulting. I say that because it's literally the truth. The Women's March was the first time some people had ever been to a protest, and I heard people being like, are they going to mace us and tear gas us? And I was like, no, you have a permit. You have a parade. You're a 52-year-old like neoliberal white woman named Susan. No one is gonna fucking tear gas you. Okay, chill. But like, I also went to spontaneous protests. Spontaneous protests, those ones were fucking dangerous. The cops were mad that they had been called out at a drop of a hat. They were actively trying to beat us up. They would not be walking. They would not just be sitting there chilling, saying hello, taking pictures, smile for the camera. They were in a phalanx walking alongside the line of people with a megaphone saying, if you block traffic, you will be arrested. If you stop, you will be arrested. And then they would block us in so that we had to stop, or so that we blocked the flow of traffic. And then they would reach in, grab people, beat them up, do whatever, right? I've been to both kinds of protest, lots. None of them did anything. Not a one. Not a one. Okay? There was a time when we needed protest in order to show what was happening. Especially during the civil rights movement, television was a new thing. A lot of people were getting to see for the first time things they had never seen before. And that was really valuable. That actually changed hearts and minds. But at this point, people have seen it. Right? People have seen it. So what we need to think is we need to think strategically. And my points of strategy are, A, this is largely to other people with platforms, whether they're TikTokers, YouTubers, whatever. Please, for the love of all the gods, focus less on who you're dunking on and more on what people can do. Focus more on unifying people, please, because that's what we need, right? And listen, right now we're going to find out, right? Because some liberals are misinformed leftists. Some liberals are quiet right-wingers. Let's find out. You know what I mean? Let's find out who's who. Because everybody's receiving propaganda. A lot of people just don't know the truth. So we can show them, and then we can show them better things to do. The other thing, we don't need to be playing to conservatives. They don't care, right? People who are operating based on faith, right? And belief in power is a kind of faith, like Charlie said. They're not operating the same way that we're operating. The only thing that they listen to is power. And we, as the people, can and should wield power. We should not be afraid of it or think that it's going to corrupt us, right? Because if we are wielding power together, that's what it's for. It is there for us to use to make each other's lives better. It is not there for us to give away to any single person, any group of people, and certainly not the vulture class that has been running our lives into the fucking ground for hundreds of years, right? Don't be afraid of power. Just understand that we need to be the ones wielding it. What is that power? Money. Work. Right? Those are the two things that they want us for. We are essentially their human stock. Whether you're talking about people who are literally enslaved, 13th Amendment, look it up. Everybody in the pen is literally enslaved. We are the king incarcerator of human history. So America is still a slaveholding state, right? But besides that, the rest of us, right? We are their human stock. That's all they care about us for. So what do? We don't give them that, right? And here's the thing. A lot of people say either it's the system that's broken or that, it's all up to individuals. It's not. It's both. We are part of the system, right? It's not going to be saved. The world's not going to be saved by you taking shorter showers. But you know what? If you can, do. If you can use something that's not plastic, try that, right? If you cannot shop at Chick-fil-A, don't. If you have any other choice other than Amazon, don't shop at Amazon, right? Also, organize. Organize in your community and also organize online. A lot of people say organizing online doesn't make sense, doesn't work. That's a lie, right? This is a tool that they did not have back in the day. They didn't have this during the civil rights movement. Think about how quickly the unions have happened. Between 2021 and 2022, a year, less than a year, hundreds of new unions in some of the most anti-union jobs and corporations ever invented, right? We did that. We, the people, did that. We did that through showing what is possible. We didn't do it through arguing. We did it through doing the work, right? Another one, besides strikes and boycotts, reclaim the suburbs. Most Americans live in suburbs. Fight your HOA so you can start growing your own food. Put fucking solar panels up. Do it today. Do it right now. Start a local mass transit system. Just get somebody to buy an old school bus. Find out people on your block, where they go. Do they go into the city? Where do they go? Set it up. Do it. Just do it. Right? And I know some of y'all in the suburbs don't like certain kinds of people. That's fine. Do what you got to do. But these are things that we can do that will save us money, that will get us away from fossil fuels, that will get us away from their power grid, that will take our power out of their hands and back into our own. And there's no other option but to do that. The last of my suggestions is redacted, but if you can, do it. That's all I'm going to say on that, because I believe in all strategies. I support everything that helps the people, us, secure peace, freedom, love, and the chance at a better life than we've ever had. And let me end this with hope. This situation right now, the reason that they're freaking out so much, the reason that they are trying to pass all these laws is because they know it's all slipping away. We don't want it anymore, right? We've all had a chance to see, we've all had a chance to do better at living for ourselves and living for each other and unlearning all of the stuff that we've been forced into learning, into thinking is the way the world works. And it was just put there. Just like suburbs and highways were put there by fucking Robert Moses and Henry Ford, right? This is all created. We can unmake it. And if we don't, all the struggles from the IWW to now will not only be for nothing, but what will happen after that will be more horrifying than any of us are ready to imagine. So let me end the show by letting everyone tell us where they can be found and how to see more of them. And let us start with our guest, Charlie. It was great to have you on with us, and we hope that you will come back again, speaking only for myself, but I believe for everyone.
Thank you for having me. I'd love that. You can find me on Twitter at Charlie_Gallo. And you can find more information at charlieandmargot.com, which is impossible to spell, so I will drop in the comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. And who's next? Let's have Fleece.
First, I just want to say thank you, Charlie. I really enjoyed having you on, and thank you so much for doing what you do with education and sex education. It's really needed. And you can find me on Twitter and on PBN. My handle's underneath me, and I'll be posting on our Substack soon.
Excellent. And Novi.
Thanks, Charlie. It was really great to have you on. And Noli, I know you had to get off early, but it was really great to have you on again as well. I look forward to talking with you again in the future. Our second episode of Live from the Empire is coming out on Friday. We are covering part 2 of our series on the energy crisis, which is going into our extremely corrupt permit system for drilling. AKA, why are they drilling in places where it is extremely dangerous to do so? Additionally, I will be writing at the Substack, and you can find me at Ovation26. And if I'm not doing that, I'm working on organizing a community garden in my local area. So, and working with local organizations to try to get some organization in place. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Novi. And to my left, the charming and dashing Austin.
So yes, I've been reading this book. As the dogs took the cover off of it, but it is called Solidarity Unionism. You can check that on my Twitch channel and YouTube with professional lapses. We do that on an inconsistent basis because life is difficult. And the main thing though I wanted to say was thank y'all. Nice to meet you, Charlie. I'm what's that? What's the French? How the French say it? Pretend I said something nice in French. Okay. And Noli, it is good to see you too. And for all you Nazis out there, eat shit.
Always. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Charlie. Thank you to Noli. Thank you to all of my PVN comrades, friends, and family. You're all excellent. Thank you for bearing with me as I took a little bit of a break to get some of my own act together. And thank you to everyone in the comments. Some of my favorite people came, and I am really grateful to have seen you all here. I really appreciate your support, and I know that you will help me to spread the word and let's just try and make things a little better, right? You can find me basically everywhere on the internet. This little thing beneath me, link tree right here, that has all of my links, everything from TikTok to Patreon to Substack, music, art, whatever. I wear a lot of hats. And again, thank you to everyone, and we'll see you next time. And until then, love each other and fight as hard as you can. Much love.